Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into one of the most audacious and, frankly, desperate military gambles of World War II. This was a final all-or-nothing roll of the dice, dreamt up in the mind of a leader whose empire was collapsing all around him.
So, let's jump right in, not on some muddy battlefield, but in an underground bunker where this absolutely shocking proclamation was made. Just imagine it. The leader of a nation on the absolute verge of defeat has just announced a massive country-saving attack. It must have been stunning to hear.
The man who said this was, of course, Adolf Hitler. And for the top generals in that room, this plan seemed completely, utterly detached from reality. To get why it sounded so impossible, we really need to take a quick look at just how bad things were for Germany in the summer of 1944.
Yeah, by this point, Nazi Germany wasn't just losing the war. It was facing a catastrophic multi-front collapse that looked, for all intents and purposes, completely irreversible.
Hitler's whole alliance was just disintegrating. You had former allies, seeing the writing on the wall, abandoning the Third Reich one after another. It was like dominoes falling.
And militarily, it was even worse. Over on the Eastern Front, the Soviets' Operation Bagration had just wiped 3 entire German armies off the map. I mean, this was a blow they would never, ever recover from. The cost? 500,000 Wehrmacht soldiers. Just gone.
And just as they were reeling from that disaster, another massive Soviet offensive slammed into them along the Danube River. That's another 380,000 casualties in just 2 weeks. The losses were, well, they were staggering and completely unsustainable.
Meanwhile, over in the West, the front had just completely collapsed. After D-Day, Allied armies were pouring across France and Belgium. And the German forces weren't just retreating, they were in a full-blown, disorganized, panicked flight back to their own border.
This loss of territory also meant a catastrophic loss of resources. All these critical war materials were simply gone. And the most crucial one, that Romanian oil. Losing it effectively grounded the Luftwaffe, Hitler's once feared air force. You just can't run a war machine without fuel.
So, this all brings us to the big question, right? You're facing certain military and economic doom, so why on earth would you launch a massive, resource-guzzling offensive? The answer, it turns out, lies entirely in the mind of the man who designed it.
Hitler genuinely, truly believed that his personal willpower was Germany's single greatest weapon. He was absolutely convinced that pure will could overcome any material disadvantage, no matter how many soldiers or tanks were lost.
And this belief got supercharged after he miraculously survived that bomb plot on July 20th, a plot orchestrated by his own officers. In his mind, surviving that blast wasn't just luck, oh no, it was proof. Proof that destiny, that Providence itself, had chosen him to win the war.
Now, what's so fascinating here is this incredible contrast between how he saw himself and what was actually happening to his body. He projects this image of a man of iron will, but the physical reality was a man plagued by uncontrollable shaking, vertigo, and even heart trouble. Psychologically, that bomb plot just sent him spiraling. His paranoia went through the roof. He trusted absolutely no one, especially his generals. From that point on, any military defeat wasn't a strategic failure in his eyes. It was sabotage. It was treason by his own commanders.
So he became a total recluse, hiding out in his headquarters, losing all touch with the German people and with the reality of the war. He was surrounded only by yes-men who told him exactly what he wanted to hear. His strategic genius was now based on pure intuition, not on sound military advice.
And this is what happens when you have a leader who is that disconnected from the real world. You get a battle plan that pits his own personal fantasy against the grim, brutal reality his generals were facing every single day.
His grand plan was, just breathtaking in its ambition. It was deceptively codenamed Watch on the Rhine to make it sound like a defensive move. But it was anything but. It was a massive blitzkrieg, a lightning-fast armored punch through the Ardennes forest, with the goal of splitting the Allied armies and capturing their main supply port at Antwerp.
So here's the core conflict. On one side, you have Hitler's all-or-nothing grand solution, this incredible gamble to somehow win the war in the West in one stroke. And on the other side, you have his generals, desperately pleading for a small solution, a limited, achievable attack, just to try and stabilize the crumbling front line.
And his top commanders on the ground, they were blunt about it.
Field Marshal Walter Model, a guy known for his ability to handle crises, saw the plan for exactly what it was, completely and totally unworkable.
Then you have the highly respected veteran, Field Marshal von Rundstedt, who was even more scathing. He called it a map fantasy. Recognizing that Germany didn't have the fuel, the men, the air cover, they lacked literally everything needed for it to succeed.
So what was Hitler's response to all this expert military advice? Total refusal. He ignored every single warning, rejected every counterproposal, and just kept sending back orders saying his original vision was absolutely unchangeable.
And so, against all logic, against all the advice of his top commanders, this impossible plan was actually put into motion. Let's see how they did it.
I mean, you have to hand it to them. In a desperate logistical feat, the German army stripped its other fronts and secretly gathered this enormous force. We're talking 200,000 men and nearly 1,000 tanks, all moved right opposite a weak point in the American lines, completely undetected. It's pretty incredible.
He then gathered his commanders for one final address. And this is the crazy part. Witnesses said that despite his frail, sickly appearance, his sheer force of will completely mesmerized the room. For 2 hours he raged and whispered and lectured, and the officers left, somehow, ready to launch the attack. At 5:30 in the morning, on December 16th, 1944, a massive artillery barrage kicked off the offensive. And it leaves us with the central question that historians still debate to this day. Was this a final, calculated risk from a strategic mastermind, or was it simply the last desperate delusion of a leader who had completely and totally lost his grip on reality?